G'day, welcome to Pints with Aquinas. Actually having a pint today. My name's Matt Fradd. Today I'll be joined around the bar table by Matt Walsh, who is a political commentator at the Daily Wire. He just wrote a book called Church of Cowards. We're at his house here in an unspecified location, can't tell you. This was a fantastic conversation I just had with Matt. We talk about politics, we talk about religion. We asked the question, what would happen if Donald Trump tomorrow actually said that he was a woman? Would he be the first female president? We talk about transgenderism, homosexual marriage, how to raise Christians in an increasingly secular culture, and much else besides. Really excited about this new book. My wife and I just started reading it, and it was really awesome. And so we have a special promotion going on for the next couple of weeks. If you want to get a free signed copy of this book, here's what we're going to do. We're going to give away 10 copies of Matt Walsh's new book, and we'll get them signed for you. All you got to do is subscribe to this channel and then comment below about why you think the church is or isn't cowardly in the West today. So do that, and you'll be in the chance to win, and we'll let you know in an upcoming video about that. I want to say thanks to a couple of our sponsors. The first is Truly Kindred. My friend Elisa McLaughlin runs a fantastic little business out of her home. She homeschools 5 beautiful children, and she creates these beautiful candles. They're absolutely amazing. They don't smell kind of plasticky or fake. They're really, really lovely stuff. Go to trulykindred.com and use Matt Fradd in the promo code, and you'll get 10% off, and you'll also be supporting an incredible family. I swear you'll love it. I'd be saying this even if she wasn't supporting me. It's the best candles I've ever smelled. The second group I want to say thanks to is Covenant Eyes. Covenant Eyes is the best filtering and accountability software on the web. If you want to be protected from porn, if you want to protect your family from pornography, from harmful content online, you cannot beat Covenant Eyes. Go to covenanteyes.com, use Matt Fradd in the promo code. That's Matt Fradd, one word. You'll get a month for free, and you can try out everything, their filtering and their accountability. It doesn't just block the bad stuff, Covenant Eyes. It also sends your accountability partner a report about the bad stuff they may have went to online. We have it on all of our devices in the Fradd household. We don't let our kids play at other kids' houses who use technology and who don't have Covenant Eyes. It's the responsible thing to do. Go to covenanteyes.com, type in Matt Fradd, one word, in the promo code, and you'll get a month for free. All right, here's the show. Ready? Matthew Walsh, how are you?
Doing well, doing great.
Thank you for inviting us to your compound.
Yeah. Thanks for being here. This is we don't have very many visitors out in the boondocks, so I'm excited.
Yeah, it's good to be with you. I think the first time I came across your work was several years ago. Something provocative about transgenderism or something, and then you kind of remained in the periphery of my thoughts. And then increasingly, more and more, I saw more of the stuff that you were doing. And some of it were like, wow, that's very jarring. The way he put that was super aggressive. And then I'm like, he's saying what I'm thinking. He's saying the things that me and my mates say over a beer, but are too afraid to say in public.
Yeah, I guess I like to do that. I like to stay out on the periphery and harass people from if I can just be in your general, if I can stay in the general thought process, I'm fine with that.
And then you did more political or religious commentary when you started out? Because I kind of feel like you're a bit of a blend of the two.
Yeah, I've kind of been back and forth. I guess when I started my website, the Matt Walsh blog.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, creatively titled.
Yes, very good.
And when I started that, I was doing a lot of parenting and family type of stuff.
Okay.
And for a while, I was getting labeled a daddy blogger, which I wasn't a fan of that. I didn't really
turn a violent course after you heard that.
Yeah, exactly. Plus, now I look back at some of that stuff now, and I agree with it. But I was writing, I just had kids, and I was writing about my insights on parenting after I had kids about 8 seconds ago. So it's a little embarrassing now, but I've always focused on at least culture and things that affect the family and affect kids, and because I think that's what's important. That's what drives politics. That's the more fundamental issue.
How did you, for those, there's probably I'm sure we have a lot of listeners and viewers who aren't familiar with you, so maybe it would be helpful to just kind of give us a bit of an introduction to you. I know faith is really important to you. I really don't even know your story of when you began to take it seriously, if you've always taken it seriously, and then maybe tell us a bit about that and the Daily Wire.
Yeah, as far as faith, I was raised Catholic, devout Catholic, by a devout Catholic family, 5 brothers and sisters, and I have one sister who's a cloistered nun now, so that gives you an idea of the way we were raised. So in a lot of ways, I think I had it easy, in that if you're raised in the truth, then you don't really have to go and struggle to find it the way that some people do, which is why I have so much respect for converts. But I had a period, like a lot of people do, when I was in my late teens and early 20s, where I sort of I always believed. I didn't leave the faith per se, but I certainly wasn't living according to it. But then I get married and start having a family. That's when I started to realize that I need to take this stuff actually seriously. It becomes real for you in a way that maybe it's not when you're just a single guy in your early 20s living, in your 1-bedroom apartment. So
you say you're from a really prominent or a strong Catholic family. Were you homeschooled or something like that, or?
No, we actually weren't, which people are always surprised, because I guess I come off like a homeschooled person. I don't know if that's I take
that's
it
a good thing.
Yeah,
I think it's a compliment.
I take it as a good thing. But no, we went to public school. So I went to public school for K through 12, and I don't recommend it. I'm not sending my kids to public school,
right.
But if the way I figured, because I had to be there, the one positive is that you have to learn from an early age to defend your faith.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be assaulted from all sides, sometimes literally, physically, but most of the time just spiritually. And so you have to learn. Best case scenario, you learn how to defend your beliefs. But I think for a lot of people, and this was kind of the way it was for me for a time, it's that you just get beaten down and broken by the time you graduate. So that's the challenge.
For me, I was in a Catholic school, which was, it was probably a better school. We probably had, better teachers, better education in general than the public school, I'd say. But it kind of felt like a public school with a religion class. So speaking of like hokey Christianity, which we'll get into, which is the topic of your book, we were actually asked to choose the music for Mass. They were like, just give the kids something to do.
Yeah.
And I chose a Metallica song.
Nice.
That I played from a boombox for the recessional hymn, Mama Said.
Did you actually play the Metallica song?
Didn't play it, unfortunately.
Okay.
But just press play.
Press play,
Which
okay.
makes it even more pathetic.
Yeah.
And we tried to say something like Mama Said. It's kind of like Mary talking, and they're like, hey, we don't care. Just friggin' play it.
Well, I would take that over a lot of the faux folk songs that you hear in masses. I'd take if you're going to go that route. That's what I always say about
go the whole way.
Right. If you're going to do the secular music, you might as well go all in and make it good.
At least,
right.
Quality in that sense. All right, so then you started the Matt Walsh blog, and you were kind of doing stuff like that. You became pretty well known. I mean, it's all relative. I understand that, but how did that happen? Were you just saying stuff that no one else was saying, and that kind of developed until you got into the Daily Wire, or?
Yeah, I think it was. It's not. I think I got lucky in some ways in the way when I got into blogging and all of that at the right time. I think what happened for me back. 6 or 7 years ago, I don't think it could happen now because of the way that social media has changed. But at the time, I started the website, I started a little Facebook group, and back in those days, 6 or 7 years ago, Facebook actually would let you access all of your audience on Facebook. So it was if you had 8,000 followers, which I did kind of starting out, I was able to grow it to like 8,000 or 9,000. But the thing is, you could actually post things and all 8,000 of them would see it.
Yeah.
And then, so from there you could start building, and that's what I was able to do. And it kind of took off like a rocket from there. But like I said, these days you couldn't do it because Facebook just doesn't.
I even feel that way about podcasting. Like I created a podcast, I'd say 5 years ago, which at the time it felt like there were a lot of podcasts, but in retrospect, I don't think there were, especially in the kind of Catholic scene where I am. There was maybe 3 or 4 that I could name, and now everybody and their children all have podcasts.
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly it. And so there was definitely a time there on the internet, a sort of a sweet spot where if you got in early, I guess you could, there's a lot easier path to success than there is now. And
so what is Daily Wire for those who aren't aware?
Daily Wire. I was on the Blaze for a while, which is Glenn Beck's.
I know him. Yeah.
So I worked for him for about 3 years, and then I went over to the Daily Wire, and that's it's a conservative news site. Ben Shapiro I think most people know who he is. He's the editor-in-chief, and he's one of the people that started the site. So, we kind of engage on political and cultural issues, which is
it's pretty cool that as a Jewish man, he's totally open to getting Clavin, who's a Protestant, and two Catholics, you and Knowles.
Yeah, well, he's got quite a few devout Catholics working for him. So when we, I don't live. They're based out of L.A., so I don't live there. But when I go into town for meetings and stuff like that, or the Christmas party that they have, we're sitting around having very Catholic-y conversations, and Ben will sometimes take part in those. Because I think if you're a conservative religious person of any religion in our culture today, then I think we have a lot in common. Now, maybe not theologically, but although of course with Jews we do have quite a bit in common theologically. But even so, I mean, no matter what your religion is, if you're conservative and you're religious, you recognize some reality outside of the immediate physical world, then I think that there's cause for some kind of unity there.
Yeah, I know next to nothing about politics. So help me with this, because I guess people would say the Daily Wire is a conservative outfit that talks about conservative politics.
Yeah, I guess that's what they would say. Yeah.
What is conservatism? And people talk about liberalism and conservative. I think I know what people usually mean when they talk about being liberal. What does it mean to be conservative?
I think that's a good question. I think that's one thing that's happening in conservatism right now that's interesting is people trying to figure out what it is exactly.
Really?
So there's a real debate that you find in conservative media circles about basically I think the fundamental question is, what are we trying to conserve exactly?
Yeah.
We kind of have to figure that out. You don't want to just go out and just start conserving stuff. You want to conserve the right thing. So
yeah.
And the way that it's broken down, I think there are many different sort of factions, but I think broadly it's kind of gone down into two camps, which is you've got one side that says that the fundamental role of the government is to preserve liberty. And so that's what we as conservatives are up to. We're trying to conserve liberty.
And what does that mean? Does that mean that free markets and things like that, and the government not trying to control how your children are educated? What does that mean?
I think wanting to know exactly what that means is part of my problem with that version of it. But I guess that someone who's in that camp would say that it's free markets, it's our constitutional liberties, the Bill of Rights, freedom of speech, and all of that. But then there's the other camp that says that the government's role is to preserve the common good, which is where I fall. And so we would say as conservatives, that's our mission, is we're fighting for the common good in society. And that's...
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not pretending to not know nothing. I really know very little. It sounds like one's more kind of libertarian.
Yeah.
Would that be a good distinction? Because I think a while back you had that big... you were talking about pornography and whether or not the government should ban it, or at least enforce the laws that are already on the books. Yeah. And I think that's kind of where that... Did you get to think a lot about it then?
Yeah, that was a big discussion. That was back towards the end of 2019. And that's where that's not where the battle lines first appeared. I think that we knew that it became very apparent there, where you had some conservatives who say that no, the government has no role in this. Some conservatives say the government shouldn't even regulate it. Just it's up to people to decide if they want to consume that or not.
Yeah. Or
maybe they do regulate it, but not too much, or whatever. But because you don't want the government to be legislating morality. That's the line. That's the line. I don't buy that. I think first of all, every law legislates morality. Every single law that's on the books is on the books because we believe as a society that it's morally right. If something is illegal, it's illegal at the end of the day because we've decided that it's wrong.
Yeah.
Morally wrong. If something's not morally wrong, it shouldn't be illegal. So that is what laws are based on.
That's a good point. Even things like road rules, we don't want people to drive recklessly and harm other people unnecessarily. Exactly. So that would be a part of it.
Exactly. I can't really think of a law. I can think of plenty of laws that are immoral, like the law that allows us to kill babies in the womb. But the people defending that law will defend it on the basis, wrongly, that it's that it's moral. So it is always going to be a moral discussion. So I think this attempt to separate these two things just doesn't work. And that's where you bring in something like pornography. And I would say pornography is obviously deeply injurious to people and to the dignity of everybody. It's harmful, especially to kids. And the government has a role in protecting, especially children, from this great harm.
It must be interesting putting out something like you did and then having the whole world kind of jump on you about it and agree with you or hate you for it, because it's almost like it kind of forces you to look at that topic really intensely for several days and probably come out with a more kind of crystallized view.
And that's the one, that's part of the job that I enjoy. I like it when that happens.
Do you?
I don't as much like the rapid fire thing in conservative media that I have to do, we all have to do, of you hit a topic and then one day and the next day it's a different topic and you just move on. And everyone just forgets. I mean, like, you know, at the end of the day, you can't remember what you were talking about on Tuesday.
That's right.
I like it on the rare occasion when something like this comes up, banning pornography, and it becomes a week or 2 week long conversation, and it develops and you're thinking about it. And by 3-5 days into it, you're thinking a little bit differently about it than you were at the beginning.
Yeah.
That's how fruitful conversations happen. I wish that would happen more. And I did kind of, as time went on, I think I refined my defense of it a little bit as I was thinking more about it. And I thought that one of the strongest defenses of banning porn, or at least heavily regulating it, is its effect on children, but especially because of the issue of consent. You know, the defense of people that say we shouldn't regulate porn or we shouldn't ban it is that people choose, and if people choose to access this, then that's their choice. Well, my point is children cannot consent. They don't have the emotional, psychological capacity to consent. So we would say they can't consent to participate in a sexual act. If an 8-year-old has sex with an adult, we say that's not having sex with, that's rape, right? Obviously, because he can't consent. So if an 8-year-old cannot consent as a participant, then I would say he cannot consent as a viewer, as a third-party participant. And so when you put this stuff in the public domain where children can access it, if they do access it, they didn't really consent to it because they don't know what they're doing. And so when they view it, you have violated their consent. You have violated them. And I don't think you should have the right to do that. I don't think you should have the right to put this stuff where kids can find it.
And this is technically sexual abuse, correct? If I were to show pornography to a child.
It's
if porn is speech, showing porn to a child would be starting a conversation, but it's not.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Or I mean, there are some differences, but I mean, having sex in public when there are kids around, obviously that's illegal. And you could say it's not exactly the same thing but it's not exactly the same thing, but it's still in the same vein. So it's just, somebody has a video, takes a video of themselves in a debased sexual act. Do they have some kind of innate human right to put that, upload it on the internet so 1 billion people can see it? Where's that right come from? I don't see it. I don't see how they have that right. So
I just want to take a pause from this discussion and say thanks to our third sponsor, Hallow. Hallow, Hallow, is a fantastic app that will teach you how to pray. It's very well produced and it's 100% Catholic. I use it. My wife uses it. It's really excellent. Hallow offers a permanently free version of their app, which includes content that's updated every day, as well as a paid subscription option with premium content. But by using the promo code Matt Fradd, one word, you can try out all the sessions in the app for a full month totally for free. To take advantage of this special offer, visit hallow.app/MattFradd. We'll put a link below in the show notes. And create your account online before downloading the app. It really is a fantastic app. That's Hallow, Hallow. Go download it on your phone now. Back to the interview. You find it interesting in these debates, a lot of it gets down to terminology when people throw words around like rights and you have to pause and ask them what they think that means.
And nobody knows what it means. That's maybe not nobody, but the average person, and I'm big into that of when people are using words, stop and say, what do you mean by that? What even if it's a basic word. Yeah. I mean, I'm doing this all the time with the transgender thing.
With the woman, tell us about that. How you say tell us what a woman is, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I think that shuts down that's how you win that debate, the transgender debate.
Tell us how.
Well, when somebody's saying something like, trans women are women, with trans woman being a man identifying as a woman. And that's what the left would say. That's what the proponents of this leftist gender ideology would say. All you have to respond with is, what's a woman? Trans women are women. What's that? What is the thing that they are?
Yeah.
Give me a definition. And I've been doing this for like 8 months. I've been hammering this. Like one of you people out there that are in this camp of believing in this, define the word woman for me without using the word woman in your definition, because that's an invalid definition, circular. Tell me what it is. And they can't. They can't tell you what it is. And that's a problem. If you're telling me that, X is Y, and I say, what is Y? And you're like, I don't know. Well, you're telling me you don't know what X is. So why you can't, your statement doesn't work because you don't even know what the thing is.
What's the most coherent response you get to that question? Does it amount to something like a feeling? Some kind of ethereal thing that you can't actually identify, but you shouldn't have to? No, I'm not saying that's coherent, but is that the main...
I'm not even trying to make a straw man of it. I have not heard an even semi-coherent answer to it because I don't think there is one. The answer I get, that I've gotten, if I ever get an answer, is a woman is anyone who identifies as a woman. That's the answer. I've gotten that answer many times. And of course it doesn't work because you're using the word woman. It doesn't answer the question.
Yes.
It's like if I say, what's a tree? And you say,
whatever
a tree is that which is a tree.
Yeah,
Okay, I still have no idea what the hell a tree is. So same thing with woman. The problem, of course, is that in the people that are proponents of this trans ideology know this, that if you offer any kind of objective definition of woman,
it'll exclude some.
It's going to exclude people, and they don't want to do that. But they also know that they also don't want to say, well, a woman is it doesn't really mean anything. It's just a totally arbitrary term. They don't want to say that. That is actually their answer, but they know they can't say it because then, number one, it doesn't mean anything to say that a trans woman is a woman, or because you just said that word doesn't mean anything, so that means nothing. Also, then you can't go on about women's rights. You can't go on about attacks on women, and you can't use that whole no uterus, no opinion when it comes to abortion. All that's out the window. And they know that. So they're between a rock and a hard place.
I'm not trying to make light of gender dysphoria. But have you wondered what would happen if Donald Trump came out tomorrow and declared that he was a woman and identified as such? And
I wish he would, yeah.
And from everyone's perspective, it seemed that he was being serious.
Yeah.
He would break that glass ceiling.
Perhaps. Yeah, maybe something like that needs to happen.
To show the ridiculousness
to put it, because that would be great. But you would think, there was the most recent, I forget the name of the person, but somebody, I think in New Zealand.
Yeah, that's right. There was a race of some kind, marathon?
Well, there are the races, okay. but in New Zealand, it was a weightlifting.
Okay.
This 40-year-old dude, the man, who's now just destroying the competition among female weightlifters.
And what do? They have to go clap for him?
Right, and you look at this guy, and he's a dude, he's a guy. He's a big, bulky guy with long hair.
Yeah.
And he's just out there, and the thing is, he's, for his weight class and his age, he's actually not a very good weightlifter if you were to be against. It's just like in Connecticut, you've got these two guys, high school track runners, who are destroying the competition. They're boys, but they're destroying the competition among the females in the girls' track circuit. And I think they run the 100 meter and a couple of, and I've looked at their times because they're like setting records. And I've said, let me take their time and let me compare that to the boys' class. And they wouldn't even be on the track. They'd be placed at the 50th or something crazy like that. And but with that time, they can destroy the girls. So if that's not enough, if that's not enough to show you the absurdity of this, then I don't even know if the Donald Trump thing would do it.
Maybe Trump.
Yeah.
What's the feminine of Donald? I don't know.
Donna Trump.
Donna Trump. It could happen. How do we descend into this craziness, and why are we so afraid to call it craziness? I think it was Joe Rogan who said, like 10 years ago, he would have thought it would have been pretty safe to say a guy shouldn't cut his penis off and then beat the shit out of women in like a UFC fight or something. But apparently now, if he was to say that, he'd be a bigot. How did we arrive here, do you think? Have you thought about that?
Yeah, I've thought about it all the time. I think part of it is, it's you don't even know where to begin, because when you try to, you take anything that's going on in the culture and you say, where did it start?
Yeah.
you keep going further back and back until you get to the Garden of Eden. I mean, you could do that, but so there's a few. First of all, relativism. This is a logical conclusion of relativism. If all truth is relative, then even my identity is relative. I can be whoever I want to be or whatever I want to be. So it's a logical conclusion. That also, I think, as is so often the case, it's the same story over and over again of conservatives being so late to the party on these battles, showing up after the battle's over sometimes. And I think that's what happened with this gender thing, because I can think back to 6 or 7 years ago. I was talking about this, and the response back then that I would get from many conservatives is, what are you even talking about this
Absolutely.
for? Right. It's.
I gave a keynote talk at a Catholic Answers conference back in 2013, and it was all on transgenderism. And I have to say, even myself, as I got up, I'm like, I think this is relevant. Like, I had a few anomalous cases that seemed nuts that I wanted to tell people about, but I can't believe how quickly it's all gone downhill.
Yeah, that's but that's what happens so often with conservatives in the culture, that we can be unable to see, unable for some reason to see where things are and follow the rabbit hole. I guess we've been conditioned to believe that slippery slope arguments are invalid or are inherently fallacious. I mean, so often, on the internet, you'll make an argument and someone says, so that's slippery slope, it's wrong. It's like, doesn't mean it's wrong. There are valid slippery slope arguments. And,
like what? I guess one would be redefining marriage.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a perfect example, because for me, slippery slope argument is about showing how, okay, you've made an argument to justify XYZ. Let me show you how I can take that argument intact and bring it over to this other thing, ABC, that we both agree is horrific. And so if I can use your argument logically to justify this thing, and you agree it's also bad, then there's either something wrong with your argument or there's something wrong with what you're justifying. That, to me, is what a slippery slope argument is meant to do. And it's an important tool of logic, I think. And if we could have seen the slippery slope even 10 years ago, maybe we would have seen where this gender thing was going.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me like if atheism is true, all sorts of kind of dogmatic answers to our most important questions follow, like questions about who am I and where did I come from and why am I here and where am I going and how should I live? It seems to me like we have actual answers to those questions, and they're pretty bleak, I think. But it would also seem to me like if 70 years is the only life I've got, and there's no such thing as natures, maybe nominalism is true, and so maybe I can't say what a tree is, and then so I just decide to kind of invent my own reality, since there's no sort of logical coherence to it ultimately.
Yeah, I think that's
kind of a nihilistic view, I think.
Yeah, I think that's, and you can see nihilism all throughout the culture. I think that's why, it's good.
So what's your response to someone? I have people sometimes will come up to me at talks and they'll say, look, my niece, he identifies as a girl or she identifies as a boy. What's the kind of advice that you give to people in those situations?
Well, as far as how to deal with it on a really super personal level, I get people asking those questions. I don't even know if I'm equipped to give great advice there, because that is a difficult situation to be in. It doesn't, obviously what I can say is at no point can you participate in this delusion that the person has or encourage it. That's certainly the wrong thing to do.
All right, and then the pushback to that would be, why not, when there's a possibility that this person may end up harming themselves? Why not participate in the delusion, at least for a little bit? I could see someone.
Well, I would say, first of all, their real issue, the despair they feel, isn't real. If a boy identifies as a girl and is in despair, seemingly because he's not a girl, well, that's not really why he's in despair. That's not really the issue. The issue is that he's in despair because he is not able to accept himself for who he is. He hates himself for some reason. And so that's what you have to address. You have to get him to love and accept himself. And so anything you do that helps him reject himself and that feeds into that hatred that he has for himself and who he is only going to make the problem worse in the long run. So I think that's what we have to do. If someone comes to you and says, I don't want to be myself, I wish I was this thing over here, I think the last thing in the world we should say is, okay, well, yeah, you could be that.
Yeah.
Like, no,
you're not that.
You're a boy, a boy who's 8-year-old boy who's going to his parents and saying, I'm a girl. The message is, no, you're a boy. It's a wonderful thing to be a boy. It's a great thing. And let me help you see that.
Where do you think this thing ends? Because I've occasionally, when I glance at your Twitter feed, I'll see that you will kind of retweet absurd things that are taking place, like these drag queen shows in libraries or story time things they do. You posted about this the other day about a group of degenerate parents who are all sitting around why that man who was dressed like a woman was kind of dancing in a sexually provocative way before I think it was a girl.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
Yeah.
Do people kind of gradually start waking up and being like, yeah, this is crap. Like maybe gay marriage and maybe all this stuff is awesome, but this we got to turn this back? Or does this? It feels like people are just kind of running for the finish line at this point. That there's going to be nothing that turns the tide.
Yeah, I don't know. I would hope that I think that you do see some of that. There are some people on the left, and you see relatively high-profile examples of this online sometimes, of people on the left saying, "Okay, this is too much even for me. We gotta step back from this." There was even a video. I don't know who it was, but it was a lesbian woman on internet who has some kind of following, and she posted a video recently about why she's basically leaving the left, even though she agrees on so many of these issues, but it's just too much. Like drag queens with kids. No, come on. So I think there's some of that, but I don't know if I have much optimism that it's really going to catch on, because one of the issues is that there's so much power, cultural power behind this.
That's why. Yeah, sorry to cut you off.
Well, no, it's just the media, Hollywood.
Yeah.
Is bought into it.
That's why I always find it so silly when I hear about these billionaire or millionaire actors and actresses and musicians speaking truth to power when they're speaking to a room filled with people who all agree with their political position,
right.
And the only consequence is going to be positive for them. We Ubered over here today with a bloke from Ghana, and he said, like in Ghana, like the comedians are told what they may not say, and what they may say, things like that. You think we haven't arrived there. So this idea that the conservative movement is the one with all the power, I don't see that. I mean, I see Donald Trump in the Oval Office, but the universities, the Hollywood music industry, this all seems to be far left.
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't say conservatives have much cultural power at all. In government now, maybe in the White House, and the Republicans had the House and Senate for 2 years, but that only shows to me, yet again, proving that politics is downstream of culture, that actually the government is not what drives the culture, because you could put Republicans in there and it doesn't really make much of a difference as far as the culture goes. It really comes down to Hollywood media, and when I say media, it's not even, people get so focused on bias in the news media as if that's the big problem. No, it's not that. It's really, that, who cares about that? Because when you watch the news that there's bias and everyone knows to look out for it, but it's in the shows that people watch, and the music, the messages that are there. That's what can really affect you. And even more than that, it's also in the school system, academia. They're getting to kids at a young age, and they're indoctrinating kids. At a certain point, it's like it doesn't even matter. As adults, we know that this gender stuff is crazy. But the left knows, well, it doesn't matter what they think. We're going to get to the kids. If
do you think it is an orchestrated attempt like that, or is it just sort of happening like that?
Relatively orchestrated. I don't think that there's any group meeting in a smoky room to hatch their plan for domination of the culture. But I think it's just understood that we're all on the same page.
Yeah.
And if you got to convert the kids, everybody understands. We understand that. We want to convert. We want to bring our kids up in our faith.
Yeah.
They want to bring They want to bring our kids up in their faith.
Yeah.
And the thing about kids is that, if you tell a 6-year-old that a boy with a penis can be a girl if he wants to be, 6-year-old has no frame of reference. He's going to think, okay, well, that makes a lot of sense. And then he's going to continue believing that into adulthood, unless someone wakes him up to the reality of it. And it's very hard to overcome childhood indoctrination. That's the problem.
Back to Donald Trump and politics for a little bit. I was speaking with a man recently. I told him I was going to be doing this interview with you. He's somewhat familiar with you. And he was just sort of bemoaning the fact that we have a man in the Oval Office who has lived a very immoral life. And there are a lot of people who kind of say this, and they'll say, well, therefore I can't vote for Donald Trump because of the man he is, the man he shows himself to be. So I'm going to either abstain from voting altogether, or they might even go and vote for whoever's going to, be the next kind of candidate, whether that be probably Biden or Sanders. What's your kind of response to that? What was your opinion? What was your opinion like in the beginning when you could have voted for Trump? You know what I mean? Like I guess you don't mind me asking. Did you vote for Trump in the first?
I didn't. No.
Yeah. And can I ask you, will you vote for him this time?
I will. When I say I didn't vote for him in 2016, I didn't vote for the Democrat. I just didn't vote at all. At the top of the ticket. I was not a Trump fan. I'm still not.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call myself a Trump fan. No, I don't think we should be fans of politicians in general.
Good point.
So, but I have a lot of issues with Donald Trump. I think my main policy-wise, I think he's been pretty good. He hasn't been as bad as I thought he would be. One of the things I was afraid of is that he's a New York Democrat, has been his whole life. Mm-hmm. Now he's saying he's a conservative or a Republican. Is he going to get in there and do a 180? And
that's what I was thinking. Yeah,
right. And he hasn't really done that. Okay, so that's good. And he surrounded himself with some real conservatives, especially on the pro-life issue. I think there's been some good stuff there. So that's all good, and that's why I would vote for him again, is for that reason.
You would vote for him for a first time?
Yeah. I would vote for him because I've seen that, and I've seen that he's not going to get in there and start passing or trying to push through pro-abortion legislation or whatever. But my other concern with Trump was the long-term effect on the conservative movement of having it led by this guy. Is that going to, 10 years down the line, 15 years down the line, are we still going to be paying for that because we have forfeited our credibility in so many ways in order to defend every last thing that comes out of this guy's mouth?
And you think that is the case, like that people are doing that?
I think a lot of people have done that. Yeah, and that's what I was afraid was going to happen. I knew it was going to happen because that's just how it works. And so I don't know. I think some people are going to say that the never Trumpers who oppose Trump have been proven wrong. Maybe they have been, but I think it's too early to tell. I think let's check back in 20 years, honestly. Mm-hmm. We always want to come to these conclusions so quickly, but you have to take this historical view. I think that years down the line, we'll look back. How does history remember Donald Trump? What happens after him? Where do we go from here? And does he have the effect of essentially ending the conservative movement because it became all about defending everything he says, whether it was completely opposed to conservatism or not? And then he's out of the picture. And what happens then? I don't know. Is the answer. I don't know what happens, but I'm afraid that maybe.
So if you had a friend who said to you, I'm not going to vote for Donald Trump, I just can't in good conscience, I also can't vote for the other person on the ticket, would you try to talk them into voting for the lesser of two evils? Like, is that a legitimate thing that you think people should consider doing? Or do you think, no, that's a respectable choice? Don't vote for anyone.
First of all, anytime someone says they don't want to vote, I always respect that. I'm not one of these people that says, "Oh, you have to vote no matter what. Just get out there and vote. It's your civic duty."
Do you know in Australia you get fined if you don't vote?
I think that's crazy.
Yeah, I did too.
That's nuts. I actually think we would benefit if there was a much lower voter turnout. Everyone wants to get the voter turnout up, but most people don't pay attention, don't know what the hell's going on, and that's just the reality. And a lot of people that are voting have no real stake in the game. Either because they don't pay taxes or whatever. So I don't know how we really benefit from having those kinds of people vote. But anyway, so if somebody says, I just don't want to vote, fine, that's your choice. I'm perfectly fine with that. I think if you're a Christian or a conservative, you absolutely cannot vote for a Democrat under any circumstance. I never would. That's crazy.
All right, now I agree with you, but kind of lay that out for us. Why can you never under any circumstance vote for a Democrat?
Well, if this was 50 years ago, then I wouldn't be saying that. But it's not 50 years ago. It's now, and now the Democratic Party has positioned itself to be totally fundamentally opposed to everything that we stand for. Let's just say, narrowed it down to Christians. Everything we stand for in our faith, the Democratic Party is opposed to. And I don't think we have to go further than just pointing out that in the Democratic Party, their position, their platform is that it is okay to kill babies through every stage of pregnancy, right up until the moment of birth.
Like if that were the only thing,
if that were it,
that would be a good reason not to vote.
Right,
Yeah. So yeah, I've heard someone say this about these one issue voters, and why would you not vote based on one issue? And I often think, well, suppose there was a candidate who was against black and white people marrying, but you agreed with them on every other issue. You would rightfully not vote for that person.
I mean, I would love I would love the luxury of not being a one issue voter. If we were living in a culture where everybody agreed you shouldn't kill babies, and so we don't have to talk about that. And then we're having an election between people and their disagreements on other issues. That'd be great. Now we can maybe you could really justify voting for either one, but you can't. So Donald Trump, whatever he really believes in his heart or has believed in the past, I don't know. Nobody knows.
Yeah.
But
I'm less interested in what he actually believes. I kind of don't care.
Right. It doesn't, as long as he's it doesn't actually matter really, because that's up to God to judge. So. And that's why I'm saying, I didn't vote for him in 2016. I would vote for him in 2020 because
I would too, just to lay my cards on the table. I mean, I can't vote because I am not a citizen, actually. But if I were, I would.
You foreign, get the hell out of my country.
Alien, and I'm not afraid. You have no idea what I've been through as an alien.
It's
an immigrant.
Well, Donald Trump said, the immigrants, you guys are bringing drugs, you're bringing all kinds of crime. No, I would. I think. We've seen what he would do with policies. That's why, but also this other issue, this other concern that I'm talking about of his effect on conservatism. As far as I'm concerned, that damage is done already anyway. So you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. So I'm not factoring that in. That makes sense. And that's why I would, vote for him.
All right, well, let's get on to this book of yours, Church of Cowards. Great title, great face on the front cover there. If you had no glasses and a longer beard and long hair, you might look like Jesus.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah. I mean, we don't really know what Jesus looked for, but I'll take it.
Pictures of Jesus that I see. So how did you get to writing this book? I have read almost all of it, you'll be pleased to hear. I know as an author myself, there's nothing more infuriating with people interviewing you, and you can tell they've not read the book at all. Yeah. I've been reading bits of it to my wife, and I found it really enjoyable and edifying, I have to say.
Oh, thank you. I think 90% of the interviews I've done, they haven't read it, so it's fine.
Church of Cowards. So what do you mean by a wake-up call to... Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. That's always it. I think the book is my attempt to address what I think is the great problem in the church, in the West anyways, that we are so comfortable and complacent. We're sort of floating on the tide of the culture and going wherever the culture takes us. And we dress that up. We dress up our complacency and apathy and cowardice in words like tolerance and acceptance, which makes it, so that we can not only be lazy and cowardly, but we can feel virtuous in our laziness and cowardice. And I think that's the problem. And I think in one of the early chapters, I draw the comparison between what we go through in the West, and if you look at Christians other places in the world where they face violent persecution. It's worse than it's ever been in history, in fact, although the media doesn't talk about it, so you would never know. And for them, if they stand up for their faith, they could be, they face machetes and knives and guns and rocks and everything. Yet what you find there is that the faith is still vibrant and alive, and we know that because these are people willing to die for it, for what they believe. And it's just interesting that here we have faced really nothing even close to that, anywhere in that ballpark. The most we will face, persecution-wise, most of us, is just insults, awkward looks, frowny face emojis someone might throw at us on Facebook, which could be very devastating. Yet that has seemingly been enough to bring us to our knees, and for many people to send them hiding under their bed, or at least to stuff their faith under the bed so nobody sees it.
Yeah. We've talked a little bit about it already, but in what ways do you see Christians being cowardly, either on social media or in public life, just in every day-to-day kind of things?
I think the most basic thing is, and I lump myself in with this, that I think if you were to look at the average Christian and follow him around for a day and see what he does and listen to how he speaks and what he talks about and how he dresses, just everything about him. And then you were to compare him to, the average atheist walking around out there, you would see no real difference. They'd be interchangeable. I think for most Christians in the culture today, their faith just has almost no bearing on what they do at all. It's just, we just live our lives. The media we consume, what we do for entertainment, and we've set up, in some of these cases, we've set up little fortresses where we believe that that these things should be impervious to faith, if the faith is irrelevant to them. And so I think that's where, it's not just cowardice. I think there's a lot of things lumped in with it, but I think that's where you see the cowardice manifest itself.
Yeah, when I started reading this book, I was feeling a kind of being quite judgmental, maybe in a proper way, I suppose, towards the culture and Christians within it. But it wasn't long until I had the terrifying realization that you were talking about me,
and me too.
I know, and you made that clear in the book, which I really liked. Yeah, you're not pointing your finger at everyone and saying, "Look at you, bunch of cowards." You give examples.
Yeah, and I think
yourself,
that's an important point, because maybe, as you know, when you try to talk about these issues on a public stage, you talk about morality and faith, it's inevitable you're going to be accused of being self-righteous and holier than thou. It's just for some people, it's a reflex. The moment you talk about morality, there's, you're self-righteous. And of course, it's hard to defend yourself against the claim of self-righteousness without sounding self-righteous. That's part of the problem. But I think that being self-righteous and holier than thou is somebody who puts themselves forward as the moral example and says, do what I do, everybody. That is self-righteous. And I really try not to do that. And the reason is that I honestly, it's not about being humble or something. It's just, I don't have that high of an opinion of myself. And I know that I'm not an example to follow. I don't want people to follow my example. I wish I was a better example to follow. So whatever insights I can hopefully maybe bring to bear in the book about what it's like to be, a lazy Christian struggling, it's because I've been down in the muck with everybody else, and so I'm making observations down here with everybody else about what it's like.
One of the examples you gave, which I liked because it applied to me too, you said you were somewhere on vacation, you were at a church, and the priest started educating people about how they ought to dress.
Yeah.
Tell us about that, because I have to say I often fall into that category as well, and maybe why it's important to dress well.
Yeah, he was. I forget where we were on vacation, but we went to a church. And in my experience, first of all, on vacation, going to church is always an interesting. You never know what you're going to get.
Oh,
exactly. Yeah. It's like a box of chocolates, and but in this case, it was a really good church, and the priest was really firm, and he got up there and he gave a sermon about. It touched on a bunch of different things, but he was especially talking about the reverence that we bring to God, to faith, to the church, and how it reflects on the seriousness of our faith. And he called people out for wearing shorts and flip-flops and jeans and that sort of thing. And then, of course, I look down and I'm dressed exactly as he's describing. And
he's just looking at you, describing red shorts, for example.
Right.
Birkenstocks.
Tall, lanky guy right there. So I'm feeling, and I did, at first, I had this reaction of feeling personally attacked. Like, who is this guy? Like, what are you doing? I showed up here. Isn't that good enough for you? I came, I'm on vacation. I didn't bring formal clothes. Not my fault. So I had that feeling at first, and I was mad at him. But then I had to stop myself and realize that no, what he's saying is exactly correct. And if I happened to be one of the lucky ones sitting there in my formal attire, I would be nodding and saying, yes, exactly, yes. See, look, all these heathens in there.
Yeah.
So I knew that, and then of course it was awkward going up for communion, and I tried very much to not be in his line. So that's just one example. It's a small thing. It's very easy for us to say, who cares how you dress at church? Because God will take you any which way, which is true. But and listen, if you're dirt poor and all you have are tattered rags that you can wear, then wear them and come to church. But most of us, that's not the case. Most of us, we've got iPhones and we've got 3 TVs in the house. And we've got all this stuff. Like you can afford to get at least a pair of khakis and a button-down shirt or something, and you just don't care to. It's not important to you.
It's interesting how Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned another time in the book how you and I guess this has got to be a true story. You stumbled across a mega church, which you and your family went into legitimately thinking it was a mall.
It's 100% true. And what I've told this story in the past, and I have had people tell me they don't believe that it's true. It is 100% true. Mm-hmm. And it was with my wife. It was before we had kids. We were in Kentucky, and they were not far from us down the street. They were building, for a while, they had been building this structure. And we really didn't know what it was. We were like taking guesses for months, like, what the hell is this thing they're building? And finally, when it was all built, it was one day we decided to stop in because we really, it looked like a mall, and there was nothing there was nowhere did it say church. There was no cross, nothing. It didn't even say the word church anywhere in the building. And by the looks of it,
influencers,
yeah, something like that,
some such,
yeah. And from the looks of it, we really thought it was a mall. It just everything about it. And so we went in. I think I needed to get some pants or something, and so I didn't get yelled at again by a priest. And we went in, and it really took me a couple of minutes, even once we got inside, to realize what was going on. My wife caught on a little bit quicker because she's a former Protestant, and after a couple of minutes, of course, I realized. But when I went in, there was like a coffee shop there, people sitting around having coffee, and then you realize the people were very friendly, and everybody was nice. It wasn't like it was.
I'm sure.
Yeah, but it didn't at all look like a church or have the experience of a church, and I think that. When you go into this is another thing. It's very easy for people to say it doesn't matter as long as you're there to worship. What does it matter what it looks like?
Whether you've got a coffee.
Right, exactly. But it does matter. Now, once again, if you have no other choice, if you're living in a persecuted land, or if you're like the Christians in the catacombs or something, and you have no other choice, and you gotta, well, in that case, you're probably not going to a huge, fancy, multi-million-dollar building, but. If you have no choice, you got to meet in a cave, then meet in a cave. But if you have a choice and you can make your church look any which way and do whatever you want with it, then why make the choice, first of all, of hiding the fact that it is a church? What are you ashamed of? And why try to make it look like every other building in the culture? Like, what's the point of that? It looks like anything else. I think when you go into a church, it should have the experience of elevating you. It should be something that's distinct and set apart. It brings you up into something. So you have this real feeling of you're entering into something elevated and mystical. And that's how it should feel. And that's what the experience should be. Not just in the architecture, but in everything. The music, everything.
I don't want to crap on the priests from my hometown in Australia because I'd only had good experiences with these men. But the mass is not celebrated in a beautiful way. I mean, there's like synthesizer drum kits and the local pub band playing and things like that. And yeah, it's just, there's a part of me, I can understand why some of my family members don't go. I'm not saying they shouldn't go. I can understand why they don't go because there's nothing masculine or even feminine about it. It's just sort of trite and ugly, and I want to take my hunger for the divine somewhere where it'll be taken seriously, not where the priest says, why don't we just say hello to everybody? And right. Growing up, the priest would say, we'll get you out early tonight because I know the football game's on. And I'm like, why are we here then if this isn't important?
Right. And if we don't take it seriously, then why should... I mean, if there's someone coming into that church who's discerning and thinking about faith and all of that, and they look and they see, well, these people don't really take this, they don't care, so why should I? There's obviously, they've got nothing real important to say or to offer me.
And I think young people are desperate for tradition. It's like we were many of us, but it doesn't sound like you were in the situation, we were raised without it. And so we're kind of like stumbling around being like, okay, so what does it mean to be Catholic? It's all kind of the same. Okay, so what? Yeah. I didn't know what a rosary was until after my conversion when I was 17 because no one had told me about it. And
yeah, I think desperate for tradition, desperate for meaning, desperate for a reason to live, something to fight for. And also, the other thing about young people is that young people are they have very good bullshit detectors, and it's all about authenticity. And if you're not authentic, they're going to sniff that out, and they're not going to take you seriously. And that's one of the problems of these churches that try to ape secular culture. It's just not authentic. It's not real. It's fake. And and I think some young people rightly say, "This is lame. Why am I even here?"
It's weird moving to America and encountering the kind of crossover between kind of American patriotism and Christianity. And I'm not sure if I can. I feel a little, nervous sharing it because I'm not sure who I'm going to offend here. But it's just a weird experience for me. I was driving down the road the other day in Georgia. There's this big billboard, and I guess it was advertising a Christian rock show, and there was the cross, and it was draped in the American flag. And I'm not sure, as an Australian, that just seems very bizarre. Yeah. And I guess that's because for many Americans, and maybe this isn't wrong, maybe this is the case, their politics and their religion is kind of bound up together.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think what troubles me, to be patriotic is great. I consider myself to be a patriot. But sometimes I think we make the mistake of equating, of patriotism almost becomes its own religion.
Yeah.
And there's this idol worship that can sometimes happen, even with something like the flag. And, you do have to be, I feel even the need to be delicate in the way that I address this because.
Especially given your audience.
Right. But honestly, it just even the all the controversy in the NFL about people kneeling during the anthem and so on, and how upset people got about that. My thing was, it's not a big deal. It's the flag. I respect the flag, but it's not a sacred symbol. You're not committing blasphemy. It's cloth, right? It stands for something. Of course, that's very deep and important. But it's not. I don't know. Just the fervor people had, and I guess that wouldn't bother me so much, if not for the fact that I don't see quite the same fervor from Christians about Christian symbols and about respect for the cross. I just don't see it the same. There seems to be more sometimes for the flag and for our patriotic symbols, and so sometimes I think that stuff has supplanted Christianity, and we've come up with a sort of Americanism religion that troubles me a little bit. In fact, you hear from a lot of Christians that sometimes they're a little worried about the reverence people have for the cross because it could be idol worship, and that kind of thing.
Wow.
Or you don't want to have statues. Yeah. Kneel in front of a statue is idol worship. Yet these are the same people who say,
hold our heart.
Yeah, you have to have a correct stance. You stand in front of the flag. How is that not idol worship then? I don't think either one is idol worship. Don't get me wrong, but it seems like it can become idol worship when you're placing reverence for the flag over reverence for sacred Christian symbols. So.
The other weird thing I've found is just this mass-produced Christian entertainment, which I didn't see in Australia. I moved here. I remember being in Walmart and seeing like T-shirts talking about Christianity and then Christian bookstores everywhere. And at first I thought this is really great. And I suppose in a sense it could be great, but there's something about it I find troubling. You talk about that in the book. You have this very funny line, I laughed out loud, where you talked about God's not dead being the most torturous invention since the Inquisition, come up with by a Christian or something.
Did I say that?
You did. It was very good. You probably worded it better, but yeah.
I'm not a fan of a lot. I agree with you. I'm not a fan of which anyone's read the book can tell that I'm not a fan of a lot of the Christian entertainment. I don't like that Christianity has become a brand. I think that has a debasing effect, and it reduces it into this. It's like its own genre now, which I don't think it should be, and. It bothers me, and this isn't the case. Look, there are good Christian bands out there. There are a few good Christian movies, a few. And when I say Christian movies, I mean the Christian TM trademark, like in that genre of Christian film. A few of them are decent. Most of them are utter trash.
It's funny because I almost wouldn't want to put the Passion of the Christ in there because it's so good.
Well,
I almost don't want to call it a Christian film.
That I don't actually put in that category.
Yeah.
Because it was made by, you know, a legitimate film director, Mel Gibson, one of our great directors we have in Hollywood, real actors, a real script, and it was just a very well-made movie. And yes, it was telling us the story of Christ, of his passion, but it's a real film. I think that's sort of separate from some of these other Christian movies where it seems like these production companies, they don't really care about the quality. They're just throwing this stuff out there because they know that the audience is going to eat it up. It doesn't matter if it's good or not. And so they don't put any effort into it. And it's just, in a lot of these movies, horrible acting. The script is ridiculous. It's a bad quality product. And it seems to me very cynical because these production companies, they don't care about the quality. I would think if you're telling a story, you're making a Christian movie, a Christian song, you're talking about God, you're talking about faith, you should put even more effort into the quality, given the subject. You should want to honor God, but that's not what I see.
And sometimes the quality increases in one aspect of a movie, like the film aspect, or even the acting, but then the script's terrible. So like God's Not Dead would be a good example of that. I love what you said. You said, I'm not going to call the characters by name since the film creators or the scriptwriter didn't bother giving them a personality.
Yeah, and I think I went on pretty long about that.
You did. It was fantastic. Because, I mean, we all agree it's a bad movie. If you meet a real-life atheist, he's not going to yell, I hate God because my mother died of cancer.
And that's what the other problem I had with that book, with that movie, and the book, I guess I didn't read the book, aside from everything I've already said, is that, I think it really does the opposite of what it should do. With a story like that, where it's all about defending the faith against an atheist. That's what this story is. The service that movie should provide for the viewer as a Christian is to equip you to go out into the real world and actually have these debates and conversations. But I think it does the exact opposite, because if somebody gets their ideas of what an atheist is and what atheist arguments are like based on that movie, they're going to go out there and get slaughtered because this is supposedly this is a professor. I think he's a philosophy professor, and he's supposed to be this, a very menacing figure, intellectual giant, and his arguments are absurd, easily batted down, and it takes just a couple of go rounds before he's screaming, I just hate God. No atheist is ever going to say that in an argument. Of course, they're not going to say that. And then even the caricatures, like there was the one character, the atheist boyfriend and he's at dinner with his girlfriend, and his girlfriend tells him that she has cancer, and he says his answer is something like, "Why are you bothering me with this?" or something like that.
Yeah. And he dumps her there on the spot.
He dumps her on the spot because
all atheists are horrible human beings. Clearly,
he dumped her for having cancer. Over dinner. Now, I get the point. You're trying to say that atheism can cause selfishness because, but it's not. Atheists aren't all a bunch of psychopaths. This guy's a psychopath. But in this movie, all the atheists are psychopaths or morons. And that's the only kind. And again, if you go out into the culture to defend the faith, thinking that's what you're going to run into, you're going to get eaten alive. And you're going to embarrass yourself and the faith because, just try it. Try going out equipped with those arguments and engage an atheist, a smart one, and he will. It's going to not go well for you.
Yeah. I want to talk about kind of raising our kids in a secular culture. I speak to a lot of people every year. I think I speak to more people about pornography than any other human, like in live settings, which is a weird thing. If aliens ever came to Earth and
you could get in the Guinness for that.
I should write to them. But I see like the destruction that goes on in these young people. And it's leading me to become more vocal about the fact that I think many parents should face the fact that homeschooling might just be their best option. And I want to get your take on this and your honest take on this. So feel free to push back, because this is something I'm trying to think through, and I don't want to lay a burden on parents that's unnecessary. But it seems to me that if you're a good parent who doesn't give their child a smartphone because you love them, if you then send them to a school, they'll be ostracized by the time they're like 8 or 9. they'll be something like a social leper, where they won't be engaged in the conversation that everybody's having, and they're going to feel completely and utterly like an outcast. And I'm not saying maybe that's possible, but I'm of the opinion that no parent should be buying their children a smartphone. I think if porn didn't exist, then I still wouldn't buy my child a smartphone, because I'd like her to learn how to journal, not figure out which filter makes her skin look good or something like that. Like, I want to raise substantive children. And so I'm finding it increasingly difficult to defend even Catholic schools, like typical run-of-the-mill Catholic schools.
Yeah.
Again, push back on me. I want to learn from you here. I don't know what your opinion is on this. I haven't heard you talk about it much.
I think that's a completely stupid point of view.
How dare you?
No, I agree. Well, so many Catholic schools are of course, Catholic in name only. And that's the case. You know, I know growing up in the Baltimore area, there were quite a few really expensive, prestigious, quote unquote, Catholic schools. Most of them culturally, it's kind of what you're talking about. It's just the same exact culture as public school. Really no difference. And so if you're a devout Christian family, to spend all your money to send your kid to that just doesn't make any sense.
My fear, though, is that the phone is enculturating children.
Yeah.
Whether or not the families are good and the school is a good Catholic school. My fear is you're still sending your child into an environment like that.
No, I think it's a really, I agree. I think it's a good point. I think the defense that people offer for giving their kids smartphones, the defenses are all pitiful in my opinion. I've never heard a good one. Because one of the first ones you always hear is, well, I need to be able to get a hold of them and safety reasons or whatever. Well, okay. First of all, you can give them a flip phone. I have no problem. You want to give your 9-year-old a flip phone? Fine, because that's all they can do is make a phone call. It's like having a pay phone around in their pocket. Who cares? No problem there, and that solves the problem. They can get a hold of you anytime. And now, of course, there was the dark old ages where all you had was payphones and kids went out and we survived. So I don't think it's even necessary. But if you want to do that, fine. There's no reason why your kid has to have internet access carried around in his pocket at all hours of the day. But you're right. It's completely changed the culture for children. And it does make them an outcast if they don't have it because they can't participate in the culture. It also means that when they come home from school, they don't escape that culture. They can't. It used to be that you go home from school and you're done with that, and now you're with your family.
And if you were being bullied, you had somewhere to kind of be loved, safe haven. Yeah. But
now you bring your friends and you bring all of that trash and garbage with you in your pocket home, and you can't get away from it. And I know the standard cliched complaint is that people say, well, back in my day, we used to go and run out in the woods and kids don't do that anymore.
My kids do.
Right. And so do my kids. But it's true though, that a lot of kids don't. And that is a big problem because that's so essential.
Yeah.
Play, going out and figuring out how to entertain yourself. My kids will go run outside at our house here and, they're running around and they're using their imagination and playing games and stuff. And the fact that so many kids don't do that, I think is really disturbing.
Yeah, the freedom to be bored, to develop an interior life. I had someone once say that the interior life is that inner conversation that goes on within us when we're alone. But if we're constantly plugged into the internet, we're never alone. We have other people's voices and opinions being pumped into ours, and we don't develop to be like a solid, interesting human being, I don't think. That's my fear.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's actually one of the big, I've come to believe that's one of the big dangers of the internet is how it deprives you of having an interior life, an inner life, because the internet does all your thinking for you. And I know I can fall into this, especially because of what I do for a living. I have to be on the internet, but you have a thought, you think about something, and then you say, oh, I want to go look that up, or I'm going to Google it. And all of a sudden now you've given over your thought process to Google or Wikipedia or YouTube or something, and you're just going to follow it around. It's going to just give you a bunch of facts and information and everything. And then eventually you're going to forget about that, and now you're just entertaining yourself, soaking in all of these images and everything. When if you hadn't done that, you would have had that thought, and you're thinking about it, and you're dwelling on it, and you're developing ideas and everything, and you're becoming an interesting person who has a perspective, has a point of view. What I've noticed with a lot of people these days, they don't really have their own perspective or point of view. It's they just inherit it from cable news or from the internet. If you ask them what they think about something, they'll give you the standard, depending on where they are. If they're, Republican, they'll give you that, and you kind of know exactly what they're going to say.
But if you were then to dig into that, as you said earlier, well, what do you mean by that?
They have nothing.
You might have nothing there. Yeah.
There's nothing under that. It's just that they have that response, that script that they follow, and it can be kind of disturbing sometimes when you get used to it, because you almost know exact phrases that are going to come out. Depending on what the is.
Do you experience this on your speaking tours when you encounter people who are kind of big Ben Shapiro fans and they start giving you their thoughts? Or do you find that they tend to be typically more well-informed than the regular crowd?
Well, of course, if Daily Wire fans are some of the most
I wanted to give you that opportunity, yeah.
Some of the most interesting, intelligent people in the world. Aside from them, though.
Yeah, those other idiots.
Yeah, aside from that, I think, generally you find... as the way it should be as people, we shouldn't fall so neatly all the time into these two separate camps, and there are two opinions on this subject, and I believe that or I believe that. If you're a real person, you should have all kinds of different views, and your views change over time because you're thinking about it and you're back and forth on some things, and that's okay. And you don't really fit neatly into boxes quite so much. I think that's the way it is if you're a real person who's actually thought about these things.
I think that's why people in the conservative camp have a lot of respect for people like Dave Rubin. He doesn't fall neatly into one side or the other. He's living in a homosexual marriage, but he also believes in things that people on the left wouldn't believe.
Yeah, and there are a few people, at least in new media on the internet, that have a reputation that way, which I do have a lot of respect for. At least that you're just thinking about it. And
what's the most controversial view you hold as a conservative that people who are Daily Wire subscribers wouldn't necessarily agree with?
Let me think about that. Well, I don't like dogs. That's a big one. But
are you allergic, or you just don't like them in general?
I have a whole thing. I think people are way too obsessed with their pets. So I'm very
agreed. Yeah,
I'm anti-pet, and that gets me into trouble. But maybe that doesn't really count. I think things like student loans, issues like that. I guess the standard thing for conservatives is to say, well, the government has no role in it, and you're deep in student loan debt. It's your fault. Pay it off, kind of thing. I've come to believe that maybe government does have a role in addressing this issue, which doesn't quite fit neatly into the box. So that's kind of what we were talking about before, of the common good conservatism versus libertarian thing. Does government have a role in some of these issues actually? And I think that it does. So, yeah, and I've been back and forth on different issues, things like capital punishment and that sort of thing. And with the way it works these days, if you find yourself wavering, you don't know exactly how you feel about something. I know for me, it can make you almost uncomfortable. You feel like there's something wrong, like you have to pick a side. But maybe it's okay not to pick a side.
I like that. Yeah.
Maybe it's okay to I don't really know. Something like capital punishment, I've been back and forth on it, and I think I'm this way, and then someone presents an argument. And
I'm like that too now. Yeah.
Yeah. You think, well, maybe there's just good arguments on both sides, and that's okay. And so you're just not sure. It's okay to be not sure on some of these things.
Well, in the final chapter, you say something to the effect of, people might blame me for this being a very pessimistic book, or accuse me of writing a very pessimistic book. And then you go on to talk about the virtue of hope and things like this. What would your advice be? And again, you'll probably be humble here and say you're not qualified, but since you wrote the bloody book, you've got to give us something. What would your advice be to single men and women and families in the world who are trying to be courageous Christians? Before we get to that, though, before I forget this, I have to say this. One of the things you said there is you're pretty sure that most Christians have sacrificed nothing. That's one of the things you said. Maybe I'm not quoting that directly.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much a direct quote.
And I'm like, that's totally me. I'll chat with another person in ministry, and they'll say, if that's what I'm in, I don't know, and they'll say to me something like, Matt, if you weren't in ministry, you could be making a lot more money. And I'm like, I don't think I could. This is... So I'm very aware that money and my religion now is tied up together.
Yeah.
Right? That if I choose to apostatize tomorrow, that I would lose a lot of people who are supporting me to do this work. I worry about how biased that makes me in assessing different truth claims and things like that.
Yeah.
And maybe you've dealt with that too, with realizing that you and I do similar work. You have a much larger audience, of course, but like you could kind of sit in your underwear and talk about things, and people are like, yeah, great, and that's how you get paid.
Yeah.
But where am I really sacrificing? And where am I even willing to sacrifice?
Yeah.
Sometimes I wonder if it's having conversations like this where we speak openly against certain lifestyles and sins that may have Google shut us down for.
Yeah, I think, that's, people will say to me often, especially when I go out and speak and things, they'll say, how do you have so much courage in your convictions and deal with all the hate and everything? And I admire that so much. And it always makes me uncomfortable because I think, honestly, it really takes no courage at all, because I know whatever I say, some people are going to be angry, but there's also going to be a big audience of people applauding me. Mm-hmm. And I'll go out and do an event, and there's a whole bunch of people supporting me and saying very nice things. I'm making money. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't really take courage at all, honestly. And I also worry about, I want to make sure that I'm not saying things just for the applause, because that could be a real temptation as well. Mm-hmm. I think that to just have a normal job, working somewhere, in that scenario, to stand up for your faith and to say some of the things that I say, that takes a lot more guts, because you're not going to have the whole chorus of people applauding you necessarily. You could lose your job. I'm not going to lose my job for saying controversial things. That is my job. So I think...
Has there been a temptation, though, for you to kind of tone down some of the things that you think Google and Facebook could shut you down for, or no?
Yeah. There is that temptation. I would like to say that I haven't succumbed to it. But even that, I can't say that that's courage. I think I also have the advantage of being naturally antagonistic and just sort of a contrarian and just kind of a bastard in some ways. So when I start to feel like, I don't know if I should say this, it's going to upset the wrong people, then the other side of me says that I should say it even more because of that. I'm going to say it louder, and I'm going to dwell on it for 10 days now, just because of that. And so that's kind of my instinct. I don't consider that courage. It's just a person. It might even be a personality defect. I don't know, but it's worked out for me. So yeah, but there is that temptation, especially on the social media sites and Twitter. A lot of this gender stuff, people are getting kicked off the platform for saying a lot of the stuff that I say all the time, and that's when you're in the do what we do. If you get kicked off a social media platform, some people think it sounds like not a big deal, but that could be the end of your career. Yeah. If I got kicked off Facebook and Twitter, I'm done. That's it for me. I got to go.
Do you and your wife talk about that sometimes?
Yeah, we talk about it. I mean, it's just a worry you have, but there's nothing you can do about it. You're kind of at their mercy, and they can shut you down. They've done it. They haven't picked me out yet, but they picked out some conservatives and said, we're going to finish you. And they do. And those people disappear, and you never hear from them again. It's kind of creepy.
Yeah. I mean, this is my fear of being on Patreon. Like, that's how I'm able to afford to fly up here and do all this stuff and do these shows. It's because I've got awesome supporters who are supporting me. But Patreon has been known, right, in the past I don't know if you know this or not, because I know you're not on it, but they've canceled certain people and have just kicked them off. And that's when Dave Rubin and Jordan Peterson decided to quit Patreon. And I hope that maybe Patreon learnt their lesson, that they can't just kick people off for no good reason.
Yeah, I would hope so. But I also think that these sites, I don't know, they've had success in doing it. I mean, you look at someone like someone like Milo Yiannopoulos. Now I have a lot of differences with him, and his ideologically and in other ways, but he was like the biggest star in conservative media for about a year, and all over the place. And then all the platforms said, "No, you're done." And he was done, and you never hear from I don't know what is he doing now. I have no idea.
I don't know.
But that could happen to any one of us. Yeah. And if it happened to me, I'd be I'm going to Walmart or something like that. I'll be working at stocking shelves. I don't know what I would do, but and if it happens, it happens. I also just told myself
that's good. Well, and I think that is a way that you can choose to follow Christ and speak truth, and because you were honest there. I've been the same, where you kind of experience that tension within you, think, maybe I should steer away from these topics about how sodomy is clearly a violent act or something like that. That gay marriage isn't actually marriage, things like this. But then you think, I'm just going to bloody well say it because I don't want to be cowed into silence.
Yeah. And if what I know about myself is if I get to the point where I start making all these compromises and not saying what I actually think just so that I can maintain the platform, I just won't be able to live with myself. I'm going to be depressed, and I'm going to feel like there's no point in what I'm doing, and it's just going to feel hollow. So I can't. If I knew that I could tone down this, that, and this, and if I did that, I would skyrocket in success, and I'd be all over Fox News and all this stuff. I would certainly feel tempted in that direction, but I also just think about what that life would be, and it would just feel so pointless.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I changed questions there on the spot there. Sorry. The question I want to kind of begin to close with was your advice for families in the world who are trying to follow Christ, trying to be faithful to the church's teaching in a culture that's very confusing and in a church that's increasingly confusing.
I think, it's always hard because I get these questions a lot about practical advice, and
I'm just good at pointing out the things that are going bad.
I'm just here to tell you that everything's screwed up. It's up to you to figure out what to do about it. No, I think so. With stuff like this, I don't think that there is a practical 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 step plan type of thing. There's certainly no switch that can be flipped, so it has to be a little bit broader and more abstract in some ways. But I do think that we have to start by doing an internal assessment. Think about all of the claims that we make as Christians. A lot of startling and extraordinary claims, let's be honest. And so start by thinking, okay, do I actually believe this stuff? And that's not a perfunctory automatic thing. I mean, really think, do you actually believe this?
Scary question.
Right. Actually think about it. And you might find, not really. I don't. Okay. Then you don't. You're not really a Christian then. And now, I guess, go forward with that reality. See how that feels. Live that truth, as the kids like to say these days. And I think it's an important step, because if you live the emptiness of that reality, and you've confronted who you actually are, I think that's going to be helpful in the end, and it might steer you back towards the truth. But if you discover, no, I really do believe this. I really do. Okay, well, that truth, these things that you say should have implications in every aspect of your life. It should infiltrate everything that you do. There's nothing that could be impervious to it. There's nothing that we can keep in a box in the corner and say, well, that's irrelevant to this. Because we're talking about a lot of things. We're talking about eternity. We're talking about what happens after you die, heaven and hell, all these things. And so I think then it's just a matter of trying to live as if you believe these things, which you do believe, right?
And then how is you and your wife choosing to raise your children that maybe you look at other Christian families in the world and you're glad that you're doing it differently?
Well, I think we were not sending them into public school. That's a big thing. Or, we're homeschooling them. That's one choice that I think is a very important part of this. I know some people can't homeschool. Some people really can't.
Yes.
So I understand that. But if it's a choice that you can feasibly make, even if it takes sacrifice, which it does for all of us who do it,
wrestle with it at least. That's what I like to say to parents. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe you're right. Maybe I'm just a bunker mentality, over the top. Okay, that's possible. But it's also possible that I'm not overreacting and I'm not being hyperbolic, and you should seriously wrestle with this before coming to a conclusion.
Exactly. And so wrestle with it. I think if you do as a Christian, I think you'll come to the conclusion that it's something that you should do if you can. And so that's of course, one thing that we're doing. And trying to, they say you shouldn't keep your kid in a bubble. I kind of disagree with that. I think that actually you should, especially at young ages. My oldest kids are 6, so it's hard I can't speak as much to people that have kids that are 15 and 16. But I know it's a little bit different. But especially at the younger ages, I think you do as much as you can. You wrap them in a protective bubble, for lack of a better term.
Well, if there's a storm outside, you're right to shelter your kids. That might be another way of thinking of it.
Yeah, and there's a cultural storm in many ways. So our job right now is to shelter them, to provide them that safe place, where they're loved, and because we love them, we care about their fate, their eternal fate, as well as their physical safety. And there aren't many people in the world who do. That's our job as parents. And we're going to equip them, put them in the armor of God. But they're not. They have to grow into that armor. It's not going to fit them right away. Mm-hmm. And that's a process that's going to take time. And then once they've been formed in the faith, in that safe environment, then you send them out into the world.
Right. I've heard some people say, well, I should send my kids to public or even this Catholic school that's not very Catholic because they ought to be salt and light.
I hate that mentality. I think it's totally wrong.
I did too. I
guess if you're in the position where you have to send your kid to public school because you're a single parent and you can't afford a Christian school, you can't homeschool, that kind of thing. Maybe this is something that you say to yourself, like, okay, it's silver lining, maybe. Mm-hmm. Okay, fine. If you're looking for a silver lining, but the reality is, unfortunately, most kids are not going to be salt and light to anybody. They're not going to go out and convert the heathen masses. They're going to be converted by the heathen masses because most kids do not have the moral fortitude to stand up against that, to be in an environment where their faith is attacked implicitly and explicitly, constantly, 8 hours a day and then beyond because of the phones like we've been talking about. And to withstand all that, most kids don't have that fortitude. Most adults don't have that fortitude.
Absolutely.
So it's just, we're asking so much of our kids, and I think it's simply unfair to them.
I agree. I just interviewed Dr. Andrew Swafford. The interview will come out after this one. And he teaches, he's a doctor of theology at Benedictine College, and he said that from his experience as a teacher, seeing the different children, he said there's a night and day difference between those who've been kind of homeschooled and those who go to school. He said he thinks that your children would fare much better if you just took them out. This is his words, and I think I agree with him. If you just took them out of school, and again, of course there are exceptions, neither of us are saying that. If you took them out of school and just read good books to them on the couch, they'd be in a far better place.
Yeah, I think there's, well, if it's between this and public school, they'd be better off just send them into the woods to be raised by squirrels. They'd be better off the public school than that. But I think so. As someone who went to public school for as I said, my whole childhood, I honestly think I learned almost nothing in that environment. I mean, even aside from the cultural issues and spiritual and moral, there's also just the way that, which is a whole different thing, but the way that they educate kids, the way they go about doing it, I think is simply ineffective for so many of those kids, which is why they put them on drugs and everything, because it's the only way to make it work. And if you're not the kind of kid who can sit there for 6 hours and just memorize and regurgitate information, which I'm still not that kind of person, you're really just not going to learn much. Mm-hmm. And that was my experience. Yeah.
Well, thanks very much for letting us interview you. Tell our listeners and viewers where they can find more about you and where they can get your book, Church of Cowards.
Well, Church of Cowards you can find wherever books are sold. Amazon, go to Barnes and Noble if they still have it out there. But I would go to Amazon for that, and Daily Wire. That's where I am active there. You can find my podcast, The Matt Walsh Show, there as well.
Cool. Thanks so much.
Hey, thanks a lot.